Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Pete Bickford. This is the ComicBase live stream, and thank you for joining us here. Uncharacteristically, we actually got into position here solid 6-7 minutes ahead of time, and we managed to sort out some of our audio issues before the show. Thank you very much to our mod, Mr. Greg Hecht, for that. Anyway, thanks everyone for coming. We've got a fair amount of stuff to talk about in a badly organized show, but we will get into it in a bit. We'll be talking about the new version of ComicBase that we're leaking out with some brand new stuff that's literally minutes old to show off to you folks. We'll be talking about some questions around item types and foil variants and apparent grades. We'll be introducing a couple of new features that no one has ever seen before, unless you, again, have downloaded the version that's literally minutes old. A particular thing called Smart Fill, which I think you guys are really going to dig. And so forth. We'll talk about how to enter blind bags. Got some staff news. We'll be sharing in sort of a broad format some awesome stuff around some amazing contributions that you guys have done to the program. Not just content this time. We've even had some neat new art submitted, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll get right into it, as well as anything else that you guys want to talk about. If you do want to talk about anything, please put it in the chat to @ComicBaseTV, and we will get to as many of those as we can until I lose my voice and we call it a day and just go out and get beers. So anyway, that's about it. First of all, before we get going, as tradition demands, I want to say hi to the folks who are here. Oro Viejo, uncharacteristically in the house from beautiful fall Minneapolis, and Department of Comics join us here from Florida. Rob Weinberg from rapidly cooling off Toledo. Department of Comics is joining us, overcast in 82, apparently where he's at. Of course, the aforementioned mod in the house, Mr. Greg Hecht. Greg Prasol, God, I hope I'm getting your right name, something like right. And let's see, it says Philly checking in. Greg already told you what the forecast is. What did anyone think of Alien? What did everyone think of Alien Earth? I got to interrupt. I am the biggest Aliens fan. Well, I mean, I don't know. There might be a bigger Alien fan in the world, but Aliens is literally my favoriteest movie on the planet. Of all the movies I've ever seen, Aliens is number one. And I was so excited by Alien Earth. I was so looking forward to it. And I watched 7, maybe 8 minutes of the first episode, and I just got that horrible feeling. It says, I need to turn this off now, because despite how beautiful the set design looks, if I watch any more, it will make me hate my favorite movie, and I can't do that to myself. I have certain policies that, one of the problems is that new memories tend to overwrite old memories, and so if you have an old memory that you absolutely freaking adore, be careful about when you go and you overwrite it with a new one. Never go back and visit, say, your old childhood home, for instance, or if you have a beautiful house that you once lived in that had wonderful gardening and things like that, and you don't want to forget how awesome it was back then. Don't go visit it later on. It'll just break your heart. Same thing goes to hometowns, colleges, etc. Anyway, Alien, unfortunately, Alien versus Alien Earth. Oof, I protected it for my own psyche's sake, and from what I've heard from people whose judgment I trust, I did the right thing. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys disagree, in which case, feel free to jump in the chat, and we can have a better discussion. Ed joining us here from chilly but sunny Toronto. And let me see what else is going on. Syracuse, New York. Scruffy's joining us here. All right, so all right, as other folks dribble in, we'll get down to business. So before we do, we just released ComicBase Metropolis last week. We were just basically still rolling it out when we did the live stream, and you guys have gotten it. Thank you so much. We've had dozens of people during the test period on the whole thing, but one of the differences between dozens of people pounding out a program for months, along with all the tools we've got and everything, and throwing it open to thousands of people from around the world, is you discover inevitably, if it's a big release, and Metropolis was a very big release, a couple of things that could be a little better. So we have actually pushed out a version 26.0.1. Actually, if you just go to download the very, very latest version, it's going to be called 26.0.2 here in a moment for good reasons, because we're actually adding new features as well. But absolutely worth your time if you get the initial release of downloading the latest build on that one, because we did fix a couple of things. Some of them were weird and obscure and would never hit you in a million years. Other ones were like, oh, yeah, if you have this exact version on this exact, system or whatever else, then it might hit you and it would definitely annoy you. So we don't like you being annoyed, so we fix them. So that's the sort of thing we do. Some of the things that we fixed very recently, and we do interim builds more or less continually. So we actually have one that's mere, like I say, minutes old. Some of the things we've been fixed in the very recent future, there was a setup issue around reports for Express and Free. Apologize for that one. We centralized some of the way that we deploy packages. When you first install ComicBase, you might notice that it's a downloading prerequisites. And we moved where some of that stuff was, because the prerequisites are things that get installed once. And when you have different updates of the program, we don't need to install them again and again and again. So we can make the version updates, we can make them very, very small if we move some of the things to the back. We didn't sync some of that stuff up between the fixed versions and the new versions up quite right on the Express and Free versions. So reports, a couple of them got left behind. That's fixed now. So if you did have problems at all with those versions and you need to, if you just download the latest version, it will set everything right for you. Other things, and thank you for the people who pointed this one out, when you go to select titles to print on a report, it wasn't initially drawing the list of titles properly. That is now also fixed, and a few other futzy things like that. But all looking pretty good right now. If there's any other glitches and weirdnesses that you guys discover for any reason, please, by all means, support@comicbase.com gets them to our attention immediately. And we don't, as they say, form snake hunting committees if we find any glitches or weirdnesses with a program. If it's an actual thing that's like actually wrong, no, we just fix the damn thing. So that is something that we want to do, particularly the early days of a really, really huge release like Metropolis was, because it's not like some releases are like just sort of getting the golf ball right up to the green, tapping into the hole come release time. You've done things months in advance. Metropolis was huge and groundbreaking, and so a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that have a chance of, as we go out in the wider world, have been like, this isn't quite right. So anyway, we want to make sure those are all buttoned up for everyone and everyone has a good time with it. So that is about it on that thing. So Brian Price joining us from Green Bay over here. Scruffy says, love Metropolis update, all caps. I will take it. And let's see here. Let's see. And someone saying near mint and fine could be the same values at the same price point. That's going to depend. So if you go and you price out a comic book, your values are set by, and I will show that. Actually, I'll show that a little bit later on. But if you go under setup and then go to grading, have a look at your percentages of near mint, because that tells you how it evaluates all the different grades of a given comic book. Make sure that those are not set to be the same value in your copy of ComicBase, because if so, then those are user customizable, and you can set them to whatever values you want. We give them default values, of course, out of the box, but your database is fundamentally your own. So if those are all for you, that's the first place to check, is you go to setup and then grading percentages. All right, so other things before we get, is that, I think, okay, let's get down to it. So I'm going to flip over here and actually, let me tell you a little bit of a story. I'll put myself on camera over there in a second. Let me go to the demo PC, and here I am. All right, so a little bit of inside baseball on the way we do ComicBase over here. So I live out with my family in Franklin, Tennessee, lovely little town. Just south of Nashville. If you ever had a soft rock hit in the 70s, basically you probably have a place down in Nashville where you're living off of the royalties off of that one album that sold a bajillion copies, and you haven't been seen anywhere since. And since then, you've probably been volunteering at the church and painting homes and things like that. Anyway, that's what Franklin is like. You're constantly running into some guy who's like, wait a minute, I think I heard that song of yours in 1974, and this is the part we have to remember, and don't say the part about, and you've never had a deal since. No, anyway, but I'm down here in Franklin, Tennessee, living the good life, and the rest of the folks are out in San Jose, California, also presumably having a lovely good life out there. But there is a process in our lives, which is, where do the comic books come and go from? So in this crazy distributor world of ours, they used to all come from Diamond Comic Book Distribution. They had a variety of distribution centers all around the country, and they'd get shipped out to the folks out in San Jose when we were all in the same office together. Then the lower end guys on the staff would be like, okay, you open up the things, you scan them all in, you index them, and then you coordinate with the rest of the content team to push out the update, and everything was good. And I'd be sitting there back in my office just doing programmy, businessy stuff, and everything was great. when we decided to move out and I want to take my family out to Franklin, we had to kind of break up the office a little bit and figure out how we're going to do business over there. So what happened is all the content team still lives out in California. I live out here in Franklin, Tennessee, where again, I'm doing this lovely live podcast, doing the programming stuff and all the other things. But the comic books are meant to go to San Jose and get indexed and become part of the weekly update. And then after that's all done, then a couple, once or twice a week, sometimes I get big boxes in my mail, which is all the comic books that have come out, which then I have to add to my own collection inventory. And then if you look at the, my garage video from a couple, shows ago, you see where everything goes until it gets sold out on the other end on Atomic Avenue. Then that's the scut work in my life. Well, this was relatively stable for the last 8 or so years, and then Diamond Comic Distribution took one in the neck, and I'm going to not say that for a while. I think they did not do well, and as a result, the distributor landscape got completely shaken up. And suddenly Penguin Random House, a new distributor in our lives, became very relevant because they were then the only people who could distribute Marvel comics. Marvel, being a rather non-optional comic book, folks to get, has a sort of strange policy in that they didn't want to ship the comic books. If we were, officially a Tennessee organization, they did not want to ship the comic books to our people out in San Jose, California, even if we showed them resale certificates and all that stuff. No, they wanted no part of it. They demanded that the only way that they're going to ship us Marvel comic books is if they ship them to Tennessee. I, as you might imagine, was thrilled. Not really, because what that meant is that all that scut work of scanning, indexing all the Marvel comic books fell on my lap. And that is a little bit of a problem. It caused a little bit of shuffle of responsibilities in the office to try to rebalance workloads. But unfortunately, what it really did is it added more work to my life. And I don't enjoy that whatsoever because I'm busy enough already with the other things I do. So now when we go back to the things, I've of late had to be doing a lot of the indexing as we go along. Anything that we can't do ahead of time, anything that involves actually doing the physical comic books. I haven't had to do this for years. You gotta realize I've been the boss, right? And so even though, yes, at one point or another, all this work was done by me, I've had the luxury of employees for a while, and I miss that. So every time that there's something that I find that is kind of tedious and redundant and hard to do, I'm now, because I'm a programming guy, very, very motivated to find ways to make it so that the tedium goes away. And this actually benefits y'all because it means that anything that I can make faster for me probably becomes something that's faster for you. And yes, and Department of Comics says, time to hire that neighborhood kid to do all the indexing. Well, it probably won't be a neighborhood kid. It'll probably be, some 30-year-old guy that we hire for 40 hours a week to do indexing, plus a lot of other things. Because we don't have 40 hours of indexing to do, but we do have some. And the problem is I only have so many hours in my week, and my week is already pretty full. I mean, I'm coming off of pretty much a 9 months of 60-hour and 80-hour work weeks, and I don't need my weeks to get any longer. So we will do something, but probably not. We have to work that job in with something else, because it's hard to train someone up with all the weirdness that goes with indexing comic books properly and have them actually be good at it without simultaneously also there's the training curve is substantial. So if you're going to go through the trouble of training them, you want to use them a lot. You don't want to just use them for 10 hours a week. You want to use them for all the hours that they can be useful. So anyway, one of the things that occurred to me early on, and so here, and we can now go over the screen here, and is that we now live in a world of variance. We've bitched about this a lot, and I found myself entering the same stuff a lot of times, and it was driving me nuts. So let's say, for instance, that this is Widow from Avatar. Now, I just cleared out some things here for the sake of demoing, but it's a pretty good one to demo with. So this is issue 0. It comes in gold, A, regular, B, and C editions, right? Including a black leather cover. Let me go ahead and turn my magnifier here so we can get into it as quick as much as possible. So this is kind of the lay of the land of the whole thing, but all these are issue number 0 of the same bloody comic book, so in this case there's only 5 of them. Sometimes there's 55 of them, and then things get really ridiculous. So I'm going along here. Let's say I've got a copy of issue number 0 in my lap. I lay it out on the desk next to me here. And I say, okay, so what cover is this from? And I say, all right, 12/1/1997. And then I say, okay, this is the way I would do it normally. I say, okay, well, we added this copy and paste thing here, so I can at least say kind of cover date and then paste that down here and copy that down there. But then I go over to the storylines and I say the storyline, this is like the Widow's Web or something. And if that's the story for number 0, well, it's also the story for 0 Gold, 0A, 0B, 0C, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I go and copy paste that one. And you do the same thing through lots of fields. And it gets really bloody tedious. And then I have to do this for the next issue and the next issue and the next issue and so forth. And I'm just sitting there thinking, well, this is retarded. I don't want to do this. So how do we fix this? And we talked over with the content guys and we came up with an idea. So if you go down to, now this applies, you have ComicBase 26.0.1 point, whatever the latest build is, I think it's 1937. Go up under setup, go to preferences. And this is one that is not on by default for reasons that you will see. But look down here in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a new feature here. It says use smart fill in grid. And we actually even added a lovely descriptive item for it, which says basically automatically fills in creator credits except cover art, cover dates for other variations of the same thing, etc. All right, click that, hit save. All right, now magic happens. Let's go back to our grid here. All right, so now I'm going back here. I'm adding issue number 0, and I say, okay, so I'm going to add 12/1/1997. I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to move on to the next thing. Boom! What just happened? It says, well, these other ones are also issue 0, so they have the same cover date. Now, keep that in mind right now. We'll get back to that in a moment because printings are different. Printings do not have that. Let's look at the storyline. So if I say, the Widow's Web, right? Same deal. I don't need to fill out all the other ones. If I know that Mike Wolfer wrote the first one, and this is actual real data, it's what's going to do is it's going to take any blank field that was there before. It's not going to overwrite data. So if for whatever reason the C edition had an extra special feature featuring another dude who wrote on the inside flyleaf or something, we're not going to overwrite that. But if it was blank before, we're going to fill in any of the same variations of the same issue with whoever the writer was. Same thing goes for that. Same thing goes for the artist, colorist. Oh, bloody. And now apparently we interrupt this broadcast for the sake of Windows Update. Welcome once again to the best produced show on television. Yes, you might think that if I say, yeah, an update's coming up, okay, I'll get to it later. You might think that would mean we'll get to it later. No, according to Windows, that means we'll get to it in about 5 minutes right in the middle of your demo. So I'm going to talk over this for a second while my machine updates and reboots. So let's go through some edge cases. So what fields are affected by all this, right? All right, so obviously not everything. If you have one quantity for, we're not going to touch your quantities or your conditions or anything like that. This is purely about creative fields. So it's about, it's going to be the storylines. Oh, great, it's done already. Now I just go ahead and reboot. That was so totally worth it. Thanks for that. Oh, Windows, how we love you. Okay, let's go ahead and launch this again. Switch over to the demo PC, and we'll take it from there. And we have the Eve 2 synthetic art. All right, so it applies to storylines, writers, artists, colorists, cover artists. I'm sorry, not cover artists. Yeah, that's an important one because the one thing that definitely tends to be different for different variations is the cover tends to be different. So if I go here and I change the colorist, put that in there, that's going to stay where it is. Cover artist does not apply. Neither does cover inker. Those two fields get left out of Smart Fill very, very intentionally. Editor, on the other hand, is definitely part of it. Same thing goes for inker, letterer, and appearances. So if I say this features an appearance of, I don't know, I've never read Widow. It's but let's say I don't know, maybe her name is Barbara. Does anyone know? I'm just saying Widow, but it's automatically going to find all the same ones of either the same issue, different appearances, different variations, so forth, and just automatically fills them in as you go. And so Really kind of neat, as and it should save you a ton of time. But it will not touch the cover artist. It will not touch cover inker. It will do appearances. It will not touch the item titles, because again, item title tends to be different because you're telling why is I'm sorry, not item title, but the item description. It's telling why is the why is this, this is the gold foil logo, this is the nude cover, this is the commemorative logo, etc. It's not going to touch your it's not going to touch your custom fields if you've got them. Prices are always tend to be different. Cover art could be, cover prices could be different. Not going to do any of those. So basically the creative fields that I've been talking about so far, as well as storylines. All right, so what's the deal with printings? Now, typically, if you've got second, third, fourth, fifth, etc., printing of the same thing, it really is, then the same creative team also applies. And so, less potentially different cover. So we are going to autofill out the printings. We aren't going with printing, though, on the other hand, we're not going to auto smart fill the cover date. And that's important because sometimes you have printings that are months, years, even decades apart from each other. And so it's very confusing if you have, the 1938 copy of Action Comics #1 and you have the 15th printing. You don't want it, that one also did not come out on, October 1938. So that one does not autofill. Now, when does it do it? First of all, it does it only in the grid, and also if you have the current version. If I go and I double click on the issue, and I pull it up here, anything I change in the detailed edit screen over here, as soon as I get done here, will automatically propagate down to the grid and fill that stuff in. So that's where all the stuff goes. Should be cool. Hope you dig it. By the way, I want to say hi to a couple folks who came in here. Let me see here. Scruffy says, I've had updates interrupt me when I've been DJing. I know your pain. Oh God, that would suck. Can you imagine? You always see people with their Macs on the keyboard stands when you see a live concert, like 9 Inch Nails up on stage, in front of 10,000 people. Can you imagine if a system update came in there and it's like, well, I'm sorry, we have to pause the show for a moment because the keyboard's computer just restarted? That would be insane. All right. So Department of Comics says, when I have to do multiple entries of variants, I always just duplicate the first one and change what needed to be changed. Yeah, that's what I was doing too. We added super copy and paste with the latest one. It's just, I got to tell you, this is all self-defense on my part. It's tedious. And it's open to lots of stupid little mistakes. Like, for instance, if I'm in the middle of a big long run of things, I'm on the 37th issue of Iron Man, 6 series or something like that, and it's got 5 different variants, and I need to copy the colorist, the writer, the artist, the artist, the storylines, the whatever else. It's very easy to either copy one too many columns or one too few columns, or forget to put the cover date down, or or paste down too far or too little. It's just anything that's redundant and stupid like this, you just want to do it once and have it done with. So that's why this thing exists. All right, so let me see here. Oro says, TV editor very often continues the same across many issues. Oh, editor, yes, editor is one of the ones. Is there a way to delineate the number of issues to fill in for an editor, please? There isn't. Now, one thing you guys probably know is, and let me go over to it right over here, is when you go and let's say I want to go and I want to add a new issue to Widow over here. I'm just going to go ahead and, by the way, if you guys are, this is a question that came up. You guys might remember we used to have a plus and a minus over here at the bottom right hand corner there, and some people have asked us in ComicBase 2026 Metropolis what happened to that, and the answer is scroll bars happened to that. And so because you now have the ability to have descriptions that are more than like 2 lines long, a scroll bar would be appearing right down there, and it'd be fighting for exactly the same screen space between the description and the rest of it with that with that thing. So we couldn't do our weird half transparent floating, hope you don't notice it too much until you need to notice it, plus minus. Those things moved over to the edit menu over here. So if you come up under here, I'm sorry, the items menu. So if you come up under here, The same function is under add new issue, or that's Control-Shift-N if you want to do that one. That just adds the next issue to a series. And to remove it, it's the same as it was before. Just highlight it and hit delete, and it just gets rid of it. So that's where those things went. But let's say I want to go ahead and I want to add a new issue of Avatar from Widow. So let's go ahead and give him some credits on this one. Now, by default, it's going to use the same editor, etc., as the previous issue of the series. The idea is, more often than not, creative teams, continue. So if I'm adding a brand new issue to the whole thing and I just hit go, then this one's going to come in with the same, with the same creative team as the previous issue. If it's not, obviously you could change it, but the idea is we want you to do less typing. We can't guarantee you do no typing, but that's the way to go. So now, and another thing you could do is when you're adding issues over here, let's say I want to go here. Wow, Dodger is talky today, but yet at the same time, he's not on camera. So Dodger, you're doing no good for my show right now. All right, let's go over here. Let's go back to add next issue. One thing also, I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but when I'm adding a series, I don't need to add one issue at a time. I can actually say, add issues 2 through, I don't know, 15 or something. And you can do them all at once. And so just go boom, and there's the 15 issues that I just added right now, and it just does them all at once. So very quick to add the stuff. Obviously, anything that's changed, let's say that, the colorist for, is no longer Barry Gregory. I would just, go ahead and, use cut, copy, paste, all the smart things that we introduced the last time out to make short work of those ones. But in the meantime, it will do nice things there. One last question I did get is there a way to say I would like to have the following 23 variants added? I would like to add the A through L variants, for instance. Answer, we're thinking about it. We haven't exactly worked out the interface on that one, but it's a legit question and we're giving it some thought. Right now, the way you would want to do that, if I want to quickly add a D variant over here, is I would highlight the C one over here. I would either right click and choose Control D, which is duplicate, or I'd come up down here and I would say, right down here, duplicate. It's going to make a new copy of that one. This is the way I would also add the same issue in different grades. If I wanted to say, for instance, I don't have it near mint, this copy's in fine, but you also can go and just change, variations over here. Let's say I want to make myself a, well, G doesn't make any sense. Let's say I want to make a D variant of this one, and this is going to be the extreme cover D. I don't know what makes it extreme, but it's extremer than most, and it's of course $125. Oh, hey, by the way, here's another quick weird trip for you. Let's say I want to go change a cover price and I want to set all the other related values at the same time. While you're in the cover price field, this is documented basically nowhere, but if you hit Control R, short for reset, and it will automatically blast in your cover price into all the other fields for value. So anyway, that's a little bonus tip for you right there. So here's our extreme cover D for Widow. All right, let's see what other questions we have going on here. Yes, Dodger barking at the Avon Lake. I don't know what the hell he's barking at. Dr. Beats says, okay, yeah. All right, I think, no, this is people just asking us. Let's see here. Let's see, or just use Control G. Control G is quick change, which is fine. I like quick change fine. I like copy and paste even better though, when I can use it. So, but whatever makes sense for you. There's some strengths and weaknesses to both ends of things. Quick change has the ability to set lots of things that aren't, they're a little bit obscure, like the checked state of a field or something like that. So that's a thing that can happen. All right, anything else in the chat, or have we handled it? And nope, we got it here. Okay, so now let's get back to, all right, so now we're back to being annoyed in Pete, which is a normal state of mind for me. Not, actually, I'm doing pretty good these days, but all right, so if you are one of those wonderful, wonderful people that has been doing a lot of work, submitting it and everything, it's to your advantage, it's to our advantage if you not only when you ever enter, comics that are in the that haven't been in the database, whether it's like a variant you just found at a local show that like it was a one-off or something, or just a really obscure title, or a strange book that we just hadn't reported anywhere. You guys probably know that like the cool way to go on this one is whenever you have new information, is to highlight whatever the heck is new. Come on up over here, highlight it, right click, and choose submit new or corrected data. And what that does, it sends the data over to our editors, and the way they can use it to put the stuff into ComicBase. It gets priced out with everything else. Our editors will go to try to go on the treasure hunt to try to track down covers and other information about the series, somehow determine a market value to get the discussion started. It starts trading on Atomic Avenue because it becomes something you can trade there, and then we start capturing price history, which then has this lovely feedback mechanism which tells you the market price going forward. So if you ever do find yourself adding something new to the database, always a good idea to submit new or corrected data. All right, so now here's the extra announcement. All right, let's say I've just been entering in stuff all this time, and remember, I'm me, and I'm distracted. I've been going through a big pile of books that came my way from Penguin Random House, that every single time I opened one in an index, I was sitting there thinking, gosh, it was great having employees who did this once upon a time, where I could have them do it, not me. And so I'm entering it. It's, smart changing all these related fields and things like that. I now have to remember to, when I'm all said and done with all these new things, to go back over everything it just auto-filled, right-click on it, and say submit new or corrected data, because otherwise, if we don't do this, it doesn't get added to the master database, which means that it'll be in my copy of ComicBase, and that's great for me, but it's not great for the rest of everything I just talked about, and that kind of sucks. So I get to realize, this Clint Eastwood famously said, a man's got to know his limitations. One of my limitations is I'm not great remembering multi-step redundant work. If there's like 15 steps to get something done, I better have a checklist. Otherwise, step 12 is going to get skipped once in a while. And if that's the one that crashes your plane, or, wipes out your space shuttle, or, or causes the bad guy to win, whatever else, that's going to be bad for me. Well, whenever there's a brand new comic book that needs indexing, and you've got to open it up, you've got to scan the thing, you've got to match the comic book with the cover, you've got to locate the series, scan, verify that the barcode's right, you then check over the cover date, the writer, the artist, all the creator fields, etc. You go, put in character appearances if they're notable, you put in any notes if they're special, you fill out anything special about the variant codes, and when that's all said and done, you then have to remember to submit the correction before you move on to the next one and do the same thing over and over again. Well, again, what did I say about tedium? I don't like it. So what I've done here is we've added a brand new feature. And this one, this thing is literally minutes old. So let's give this one time to talk, to cook a little bit before I tell you that much about it. But I mentioned that for all the stuff to go out into the greater world, you've got to submit it as a correction. So what I've done is we've added a brand new submit all command, but it's only for specified people. Not everyone gets this. Why is that? Well, because not everyone's going to want to get it, for one thing. The other thing is, I don't want this falling into the hands of people that are going to just use it to spam us. Frankly, I want people to prove their mettle first. But what it does is this. So when you come back over here, you might have noticed that this brand new feature right at the very bottom here, it says not just submit new or corrected data, which would tell me, yeah, thank you for the information on those 6 issues, but submit all corrections. And if I do that, what it's going to do is going to pull up this thing here. It says, all right, do you want to send all submitted new and corrected data for which media? And you can choose comics, books, magazines, or just everything. And you can also say in ahead of time, do you also want to submit any brand new pictures you've added? And if you do this, and again, because this thing is literally minutes old, I'm not foolish enough to actually demo this right now. I'm just going to talk about what it would do if it's working properly, as opposed to what it will at least has a 50% chance of doing, because it's been run successfully all of once before showtime. It will be getting a little more baking before it goes to you. But what it will do is it goes through every single thing that you have changed in your database since the last time you submitted a correction, and it sends it. in one big batch. You don't need to remember where anything is. You don't remember what titles you did. You don't need to remember what batches you did. Now, what does it send to us? It only sends us the generic stuff. It does not send us any of your custom fields. It does not send us your quantities. It does not send us your pricing. It does not send us how much you paid for anything. Nothing personal. It just sends the information on the comic book itself. So don't worry too much about that. It's the same stuff that goes out if you say submit new or corrected data. It's just that you don't need to remember where all the stuff was. So what that does is allows someone like me or someone like you perhaps who has been doing a lot of work. You say like, oh man, I really indexed the hell out of this series over there, but I don't really remember where it all was. Now, what people would often do in the past on that is they would just go Control A over the entire, 1,500 issues of Action Comics or whatever else and submit it all over to us, at which point our back-end guys would get this big glob of data with 1,500 issues, almost all of which were exactly the same as what we had before. Now, we're pretty fast at iterating through that stuff. It's not a big deal to us, but it's not the best way to go about this whole thing. Plus, what if you weren't just working on Action? What if you were working where some of the folks on listening to the stream right now, I know, have been filling in page counts and cover dates for all of DC. And let's say you've been slowly working your way through the B's or C's of DC. You remember, well, I got Blackhawk, I got Creature Commandos. Did I get it? Did I get as far as Doom Patrol? I don't remember. You don't need to go through and remember any of that stuff. You just need to say submit all, and anything that's new since the last time you sent us stuff, it just gives it all to us. And so you get one big whole hunk. Our editors get a big thank you package full of, I don't know, between 5 and 5,000 things that you've done, as well as if you say you want to send them any newer or larger pictures that we didn't have before. You don't need to get prompt every single time as okay to send us that picture, is okay to send us that picture. We'll take a one-shot yes or no, and it'll either send it to us or not send it to us, depending on whether it's a new picture that we didn't have anymore. And you can do it all once and just have done with it. Now, it will remember for a given database. It'll remember, let's say you clock out at the end of the day, you don't remember to submit all. No big deal. Hit us tomorrow or the next day or next week or whenever the heck you feel like. It'll remember the last time you submitted. But the one limit on this one is it will only remember since the last time you did submit data. So if you want to submit things that are beyond what was just, I guess the one thing you don't do is don't send us, if you want to send us information on 4,000 new issues of a Portuguese, adventure series that you've been indexing, don't not send it to us and then send us issue, I have one correction for you on, Widow from Avatar 0D, the Extreme Edition. Because when you do that, it's going to reset the date from the last time you sent us something. And then it will not remember that you indexed 4,000 other issues. At that point, then we're in the same boat you were in before. You need to remember, oh yeah, that was the series Avi, whatever else from, Editorio, Bianco, and then send that to us again. You'd have to go to that series, select all, submit, and it's a little bit of a hassle. We don't want that. So just hit, submit all when you want it. All right, now, what's this whole deal about not everyone gets this feature? This is a first time in history that we are doing this. And it basically comes down to this. There are people who are, again, and honestly, you guys are doing us a favor. So let's just keep that straight with everything I have to say about, when it helps. So, anyone who wants to send us anything, that's a lovely thing. But not everything is useful. So there are people with, it's very, very useful, for instance, to be kind of on the same page with our editorial standards. So if you like having, designating covers using all sorts of unique variations that are not found in our database, it's your right as a user, absolutely. But it's not particularly useful for us as far as being able to ingest your content. We can't use that sort of thing too much. Same thing goes for if you've there are people who like editorializing the storylines. They don't just say this is Web of the Black Widow. They like to say in this issue, this happened, and then they write 73 paragraphs about what happened. If you want to do that, that's great. But keep in mind, we're not going to accept that as a storyline because that's just not the editorial format of ComicBase. The storylines for us is we need the name of the storyline. We don't need to know everything that happened along the way. It's not the Wikipedia entry on the story. So again, what you do in your own database, perfectly great. If you want to submit to it, perfectly great. But again, we have to kind of calibrate that against what's useful. So what are we doing here? Well, certainly at least until we kind of get our feet under this one, because this does have the ability to really blitz our editors under with content. Because again, this is the sort of thing, if you say, submit everything that I've changed since using the database since the last time I used the thing, it could be rather a lot of data, as you might imagine. So what we're doing, first of all, is the feature only appears if you have achieved badge number 18, the 4-color scholar badge. So if you guys have seen in ComicBase, you'll see there are various things that will give you badges. Like for instance, the first time you post a comic book for sale, will give you a badge. I think it's the first time you save a report to the web, will give you a badge. And then there's other things you get for having submitted and had accepted certain numbers of correction points. So for every thing that you submit that we accept, you get 1 point. And for every picture that you submit and we accept, we also get 1 point. A little hard to know that, because in order to have a picture come to us, it has to be a picture that's bigger or new from anything we've had before. So if we have a little tiny picture of Action Comics number 487 and you have a beautiful 4K image of it, that'll be something that when you try to submit it, we'll say, oh, hey, your picture's quite a bit larger than ours. Is it okay if we have it? We'll ask that, and then if you give it to us, then we give you an extra point. The corrections, you can't know whether you're getting the point until our editors review it. If you do nothing but send us a bunch of information that's not particularly useful to us or that we already have, thank you. We again, you're doing us a favor just sending it to us, but if we didn't accept it, you'll notice your point score will not have gone up. But if you get to a point where you I think you might get something for having a single correction, but there's another award you get for having 100. There's another one you get for having 200. That's the 4-color scholar one. That's the one I'm referring to right now. And there's another one you get for being on the leaderboard. And there's another award you can get for having 100,000 correction points. It's one of the few silver badges we have, because it's only a few people that ever earned it. But it's called the Commander Shepard Award, after Barry Shepard, the first guy to have ever set that bar. Since then, we've had absolute madness in the house. I believe the current record holder is oh God, I'm just having an aneurysm. But I believe the current record holder is something like 3.7 million corrections. This is the people who have indexed largely all of newspapers. The people who submitted the initial indexes on those, which really forced us into a brand new part of ComicBase. But we'll leave that to be for now. But anyway, if you have at least 200 correction points, then the feature will appear in your menu bar. Up until you have 200 correction points, just submit things the normal way. It's good. But as soon as you ever hit the 200 point mark, at that point, there's going to be a brand new command in your menu bar. You can get to it by either right-clicking and saying submit, right-click submit all. It's right next to the submit new or corrected data command. Or if you mash down the Control Alt-Shift-S key, which basically means form your hand into the rough shape of a D chord, and mash down on the keyboard, and it will blast that over to us. So that is the brand new stuff we want to talk about here. So some other things that have come up while I have been yapping. Oh, Oroviejo says submit all, hooray! And there's lots of emojis with lots. Wow, that's a lot of emojis there. Okay, so let's see here. Ed says when submitting larger, more accurate cover images, the master database automatically updates each or is each image reviewed by the editors. Everything goes through the editors first. Now, realistically, the editors work in bulk. I mean, they're working very fast. We literally thousands of new bits of content hit us every day, and so they're working fast. So what'll happen is we see big folders full of your images. We can look at them and so if you're seeing us pictures of that's not even the right thing, we will note about that. But typically, what we're doing is we're dragging the folders full of images over, and we see them filling in as we go. And so we, as it goes, we see, okay, that took that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Ooh, it's different than our picture, but we had a picture before. In that point, it brings up a little control panel, says, well, you're saying this is the A cover. We said this other thing is the A cover. Your image is bigger than ours. Our image might be different. We might be disagreeing on whether that's the A cover or not. Generally, in general, unless we really got it wrong, like as in we mark something as a particular variant cover and the publisher marked as something different, we tend not to ever change variants once they're down there. But it doesn't come up all that much. But yeah, that is something that an editor will review. So you don't get the point until we've accepted the image. If it gets rejected, then actually I think you still get the point for sending it to us, but we don't use the image. So that's the thing. Another thing, please don't send us images that anyone else is claiming some kind of weird copyright on whether it's true or not. The copyright with an image resides with whoever owns the image, and we have gone to the trouble of getting just file cabinets full of permissions agreements with anyone who might want to cause trouble on that front, even though it's fair use. But again, fair use is a legal document that you only get to prove it, and this is fun, in court, and we don't want to go to court, which is why we spent years in some cases getting the permissions agreement signed to use images from Marvel and DC and everyone else before we even got off the ground doing ComicBase. But if something like Mile High Comics has stuck their imprint all over the image, we don't want it. It's God bless, but Mile High Comics can keep that image. We can't use it in ComicBase. Occasionally something sneaks through because we do get tired as we're going through these things, and sometimes if it's very subtle, we don't notice it right away. But yeah, if it's My Comic Shop or Mile High or something else like that, we throw away the image at the end. So please don't send us those. All right. All right. Let's see what else we got going on here. Greg Hex says, speaking of page counts, when doing page counts, do covers count as pages? For example, DC's 100-page Giants were 96 inside, but 100 pages if you count the inside and outside covers. I'm going to speak out of school a little bit on this one, just because I'm starting to see page count information coming in since we added the fields with ComicBase 2026 with Metropolis, but it seems to be that new comic books are typically coming as 36 pages is what the publisher is claiming, and so we're going with that, which to me means that they're counting the covers. All right, let's see here. Chris Praisall says, we live in a comics world where writers and artists blaze new paths for franchise character teams. Some we love, some we don't. My favorite movie is Blade Runner. TV series is fantastic. It's loosely related to the movie. Incredible story. Completely its own entity. Look at Alien Earth as a standalone idea, and I think you'll like it. Maybe not. Yeah, I've heard that said, and I would tend to agree with as well. If they'd called it like Blade Runner Xenomorph, I probably would freaking have adored it. It's just the problem is that they called it Alien Earth, and it's one of those things where, like, if you guys have been reading Aliens, you think go to Alien Earth War or thing like that. Man, fans have been fantasizing about this thing forever. We have a really good idea of what the universe is. We have a really good idea of how everything kind of works, and it's just when things go awry from that, it's sets off the alarm. But if they treat it, I feel this way about a lot of things, is the easiest thing to do for a creative team is to take an old series, like a known intellectual property franchise, and recast it for modern audiences, right? Race and gender swap whoever, and have a bold new direction with blah blah blah, but then keep the same title, keep the same whatever else. Except, Blade the Vampire Slayer is now going to be played by a Japanese samurai warrior. Yeah, no. It's what would be far better is if you called him, Goku the Vampire Slayer. Goku the Vampire Slayer would be like, he's badass. This is the coolest thing since Blade. And that's easier for fans, I think, to take in than the idea of like, oh yeah, Blade's Asian now, and he's completely different from a personality standpoint. But other than that, we still call it Blade. That's hard. I get why the producers and the teams they're doing the bank, rolling behind the whole thing, why they don't do that with favorite series, because it's much easier to sell an established brand, even if what you're really doing is kind of screwing with fans' love of the canon of the lore and the characters and everything else. Would be a braver, but I think a better, more satisfying decision if you try to make your own brands. But it's just one guy's opinion. All right, so Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica is one of the only ones where it actually kind of a little bit worked. I'd say it's a good exception proving the rule kind of example of that one, because you did need to have some of the lore of lost colonies of Earth and things like that. It was less, if you take some of the major themes of the original series, the Cylons were not scary robots anymore, but you did have the idea of it was a band of people running away from a big calamity that had wiped out most of Earth. The first one was basically a big humans running away from catastrophe story. The second one was much more an exploration of what it means to be human and things like that. Very, very different. Something somewhat similar to the way that Westworld was spun out with the Lisa Joy and oh God, I want to say Jonathan Nolan. Especially the first two series of that one, much more. It was the same idea of Westworld from the day, but they took in a very different direction. So yeah, it can work, but again, just know that you're facing down the expectations of your fan base. So if you're going to depart, man, it's really on you to make it like way new and better. If you're going to go there, don't just take the same old thing, repeat the same notes, and give it a brave new cast for modern audiences, because again, then you're just asking for fan backlash like you can't believe. All right, so other things that are going on. So ComicBase TV for books, I tend to treat page count as approximation. Amazon, GCD, and other sites treat it differently. As long as it's 200 pages, I'm not too worried if it's 196 or 204. Yeah, fair enough. I'm not a particular denizen of the page count wars on this one. Realistically, as we get page counts in, our information originally comes from whatever the publisher said it was, which nice thing is we now get that information from all the major distributors as part of the solicitations. But if, I don't know, I guess if you're going to take, Free Comic Book Day Tamagotchi Paradise apart and count it out, I mean, if the publisher says it had 24 pages, we're going to say 24 pages. If you count it and you say it says 28 or 26, by all means, submit as a correction, and if it gets to be contentious, I guess we'll talk it out with the editors. I don't know. All right, so this time I'm not going to skip over the announcements because Greg Hecht was kind enough to put them up here. First of all, let's go back here in the PSAs for today. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. This means a lot to us here. We do this for the yucks. We do this to get the word out. But saying like and subscribe, in particular, if you put a comment in, actually introduces the stream to civilians, other people who aren't in the club already. So even if it's just something like the, hey, Smartville looks cool, or Pete's hair, it's ridiculous today, you got to see it. Something like that actually does help the channel quite a bit. So please do subscribe and comment. Comment is huge. All right, other things about that. We do have a dedicated message thread on the ComicBase message boards, and you can also suggest live stream topics. Matter of fact, we're going to be taking up a couple of those in future shows. By the way, we have for once like 2-3 shows in the offing, like planned out. It's going to be crazy. It's like we actually have an idea where we're going with this for the next couple of weeks. It's going to be amazing. And also the torrent link for Andre's world famous ComicBase cover catalog. Andre, of course, is the guy with the 3 million points. Is available on the ComicBase message boards as well. So have a look at that one. And let me see. Oh, and don't forget to check out Atomic Avenue, the ComicBase powered venue for buying and selling comic books, magazines, and more. And Department of Comics says normies. We've met them, right? I mean, we aren't them, but we've met normies. The people who don't live, breathe, and sleep, knowing whether or not, Blade was a true vampire, a vampire by transfusion, whether he's really dead, undead, or another form of being. There are people who haven't spent 3 or 4 hours having that argument with friends. Well, every girl in the room rolls her eyes backwards until she looks like one of the people in Walking Dead. Anyway, but yes, those are normies if you meet them. So lovely folks, nice thing to say about them. And anyway, you go out and find them. They're good. All right, other things that are going to come up. Real quick answer to a question that came up in the forums of how do we enter blind bags? Blind bags they're a thing, as you all know, which is we've got a comic book that so DCKO is the number one prevaricator of this one right now, or instigator, I don't know, practitioner. They're the people what be doing it, of doing the blind bag thing, where they've got like 20 different variants of a different comic book, but you don't know which one you've got. It could be anything from the bog standard, common version to the 1 in a bajillion version, etc. But instead of trying to make you buy a bajillion copies in order to have a shot at buying the rare one, which is the entire economic market of the comic shop world right now, no, instead they're going to say, hey, what you really want to do is buy like 500 copies of the blind bags, open them all up and see what was inside, and maybe you got lucky. I don't have particularly strong opinions about whether this is a good thing, bad thing, etc. It's, it's interesting. What the hell, if you want to do it, do it. It does add that kind of gambler's frisson of expectation to the whole comic book game. The real question I care about is how the hell do we enter the blind bag into ComicBase? Now, this is the Schrodinger's comic book type thing. It's actually pretty easy, and there is a precedent for it. If you have opened the comic book and you know what's in it, then just enter it as that variant. Whether or not you store the bag itself is a matter up to you. You can store it, not store it, we don't care. But that is typically the advice of anything that's been bagged is take the bag. If you want to save it, fold it in half, stick it behind the backing board, because the bag will tend to go acidic before anything else, and it will discolor the comic book if you leave it stored next to the comic book too long. But once you know what the variant is, just store it as that variant, because the cat is out of the box, is either living or dead, is no longer Schrodinger's comic book. I may have mixed the metaphor just a little there, but I think you guys follow me. If the comic is still in the blind bag, and presumably it's a really good blind bag, you have no way of telling that it's that blind bag, at which point it's the blind bag variant. It's probably the standard variant for the particular comic book, which is to say, I don't know which one it is. If you want to see Blitmap, if you look that one up in ComicBase, Blitmap, that is the people who've taken the concept of variants to the ultimate extent. They basically will typically have 6 or 7 different primary general figures that go on each comic book, but then from that one, they will customize the head 7 different ways. They'll customize the accessories 7 different ways. They will have it with or without, different elements. They'll print it on 7 different kinds of cardstock. But they've made it essentially, by varying enough elements of the cover, they've made it so that literally every single comic book is its own unique variant. And the only thing we could do in that case is say it's one version or the other of, and we would list the primary designs of the whole thing, and then say specifics will vary. But with a blind bag, the answer is we don't know what's inside the bag, and the not know what's inside the bag is the usual variant. But when you open it and you do know what's inside the bag, then it becomes one of the known variants, and that's how you enter the blind bags. Okay, so sorry, Dr. Beast helpfully says purveyor. I'll go with it. Sure, we'll go with purveyor. All right, so let's see. ComicBase says, this all sounds like we need a ComicBase after hours session. Are you out of the woods enough to host one? I'm going to say just about. So I'm going to be slight spoilers on this whole thing and say, I know what I'm talking about for the next couple of weeks, because I got stuff that the announcements are starting to pile up on me here. And so we will be announcing some more stuff next week, and it's some announcements that have been a long damn time coming. And I'm really looking forward to that one. And probably the week after that, we also are trying to arrange to have, and I'll get into this a little bit further, but we've had some really cool art stuff work its way into the program, courtesy of Mr. Brian Stewart, who's been doing very cool things, and we're trying very hard to, first of all, wishing him all the best on his recovery, because he had a thing that laid him up for a bit. But anyway, we're hoping that we can convince him to come on the show and lead us through how he does his artwork. We have been the lucky recipients of one of them. If you ever see during the month of October in particular, if you launch ComicBase, there's something like a 1 in 4 chance that it has sort of a Stranger Things cover that comes up. And if you have a very new download of ComicBase, it even comes up with a sound effect of like is go in the background. So if your ComicBase is sounding crazed as you launch it, you've drawn, congratulations, you've drawn the new Halloween cover. That was actually by Brian Stewart, and so it was very cool, and so we're happy to have that. But he's going to talk about how he does his art, so we hope to have that one in there soon. We have stuff coming up on CGC Restoration. There's so much stuff going on. So, but we will be talking all about it, and as soon as we can. But yes, I am looking to the point now where, as I'm looking forward to my schedule, I'm actually seeing time that after this thing happens, I don't actually have anything else on my plate. So that would be delightful. And I very much would love to host a ComicBase After Dark at that point. ComicBase After Dark, by the way, is our very occasionally, sometimes far too freewheeling. It's referred to it as sort of a speakeasy show. Where basically grab yourself an adult beverage, and it's like hang out with your buddies from the comic shop, but we basically do it on Rumble as one large Zoom stream where we rotate people in and out and just gabbing. So So that's about it. And we can talk about all the things that are not the slightest bit corporate and having to do with anything politically correct. So yeah, I'd love to do that in a bit. I need to finish up a couple things, but once that's done, I'm totally up. All right, guys. Well, I think that will do it for now. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you guys enjoy the new stuff. Please let us know what you think of it, and if you have any thoughts, because there's a lot to think about everything that we're doing here, please send them to me, pbickford@human-computing.com. I'll go ahead and put that up on the stream right here if you guys don't have it all welded into your address books. pbickford@human-computing.com. I absolutely want to hear what you have to say about any of this stuff. Are we doing good? Are we doing bad? It would be much better if we did something else a different way. Let us know, and we'll take it from there. All right, guys, that will do it, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.